What's going on, YouTube world? Steve, Dave, Insert Revolution podcast, episode number 62. Tonight we're going to be chatting about how we deal with injuries to like our main guys, or even guys that we enjoy to a lesser tier, just because, again, that's part of the game. And we're about a month into football season, so injuries have already played a big factor, a big part of the season, and hockey, basketball both starting up. So sure, at some point or another, those will start trickling in too. And as it always is, people will give their 2 cents on Zion and whoever else is getting hurt and what will happen. So it's not like anything new. They're not saying anything new. We're not saying anything new, but we're not giving you the perspective of constantly jump ship. There's always opportunities, we've said, in collecting, no matter what you're collecting. This will we'll dip into a little bit of that, as I prefaced in the write-up for the episode, but gonna be an early night too. We make 2 hours, I'll be shocked, because work is fucking kicking my ass. It is dick shot after dick shot after dick shot. So
what's going on, Yannick? Ty. So yeah, early not on my accord this go around. We do know it's also game 1 of the World Series. Go Braves. Just thought I'd throw that out there, because since we talked about that, last week briefly about, the Braves and TBS and the 7:05 start time, and first time in 22 years for them. Good deal, because unfortunately my my cable box in my living room is on the fritz still, and I haven't bothered to gripe and complain and get a new one. I can go into the bedroom and watch it if I want to, but I can't multitask like Dave does from time to time. I'll be too focused on what's going on the TV and not what's going on in here. So, guessing what, second inning, or did it just start? Because it would have just started 8 p.m. Eastern, so
yeah,
they could be going into the bottom of the first, top of the second, give or take. But we knew it was going to be first at bat. Okay. That's a good way to start. What's going on, Bobby?
Shocked they have him leading off.
Do what?
I'm shocked that he's leading off. Soler, I know Acuna was doing it before before he got hurt, but Soler is your prototypical 3 or 4. Not really the contact you want from a leadoff guy, but
he's playing DH. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I know they're in Houston. So we knew it'd probably be a light crowd because of that. As Dave alluded to, he's been getting some swift kicks in the testicles in preparation for the grand opening tomorrow. We'll do our best not to go too deep into that, Dave. Maybe we can actually reach the under of the cuss factor that DC was alluding to earlier.
We'll try. I don't know. Like I said, I always bet on the over.
When it comes to that, that's pretty. I mean, that's a pretty good safe bet as it pertains to the show. Also depends on how heated we get within conversations and topics and everything else. This is true, Vinny. This is true.
What's going on, Eric? Vinny?
Not used to seeing him in the comments.
No, no, and then wrestling last week too. I mean, there's been very little downtime. Sunday was pretty much a chill day, but last Thursday left Ely at 11 a.m. Drove out with Trista to Fargo to watch wrestling. Got there about 5:30ish, maybe 20 after 5. She showed me to around her college campus. She hadn't been out there, I don't know how many years, it was like 18, 20 years. So it's Concordia Moorhead, which is, if you've I think watched any minor league baseball, it's Fargo Moorhead, the Nighthawks or something. If Micah was here, he'd tell us who the famous alumni or alumnus out of that squadron is. But same league that had the St. Paul Saints, which had J.D. Drew when he was going through some contractual garbage in the mid 90s, and then Daryl Strawberry played there for a brief period. I think after one of his rehab stints. There's been a lot of other players too. Kevin Millar, I think, played a couple years there before he got his footing with the Marlins. But drove out there. Supper was about 6. Got done about 6:40. Drove over to the venue and get in there. Said doors open at 7. Didn't say meet and greet was at 6:30. Didn't see meet and greet was at 6. Nothing on any signage or any posting on Facebook. So get there and the guy's like, "Oh, Suzuki just went in the back because this is the guy I wanted to meet, Minoru Suzuki, murder grandpa." And I'm like, "Fuck, okay." I'm like, "Is he gonna be out again?" He's like, "Yeah, he'll be out during intermission." I'm like, "Oh, that's fine, whatever. I don't care. Just as long as I meet the fucker." That's that's the guy that just drove, or Trista drove out. Supposed to like nap during it, but I couldn't. Obviously, that never works out. It's like a 5.5 hour drive, 6 hour drive from Ely, and she drove from Gilbert to Ely, then back towards to Fargo. So okay, whatever. Intermission comes, he's not out then. Well, this is bullshit. It's not about the $40 that I spent for the meet and greet. It's value to the point where it's like, okay, these are why I go to these, and I've said it multiple times, to these like smaller events where you can pay, in my opinion, a minimal amount to meet some of these guys. You're still going to probably pay for Taker, big name guys. You're going to still pay a ton, but to pay $40 for this dude, which again, the Japanese guys, I'm going to always go look for their the ability to meet them because they're not over here all the time. It's a cycle. It's very cyclical, as they say in the business, that he's here for like a month, a couple months, and then they'll go back. So waited, watched the event. It was a good event. Again, I get tired of because Micah, one of his best friends, wrestles out there. Josh Price, I think, is his wrestling name, and he started up a federation too. Which again, whatever. But then you got the guys, and I just don't get it. Work together, and then after you've built both your brands up, or whoever's out there, then start like the jabs back and forth, and maybe you can go to like a big super card where one federation against another, because again, it's Fargo, it's not fucking WWF and WCW mid 90s. But they're like, this is the most hardcore shit you're gonna see, and this is the best wrestling you're gonna get around Fargo, blah blah blah. I'm like, you're in a music, like I won't say a dance hall, but somewhere where again you're gonna have like a high school dance, basically, because you got the bar set up, big open space. There was like a more like for concerts, small concerts, like intimate concerts because you had the staging or the little platform stage. The wrestling ring was basically right against that. And so you couldn't do anything off the top rope. You were going to hit yourself in these beams and these girders or whatever. And it's like, okay, you want to say that. This is, and Mike had said it. He's like, I've been to a couple. This is the first time they've had a ring. I'm like, well, that's awesome. You've had how many events, and this is your first one with like a ring? And you're saying you're the best wrestling? I mean, I get where there's excitement and I get where there's like a buzz, but at the same time, let's be realistic. It's we were doing it in the back alley. This is stuff that we could have seen in like the mid '90s, early 2000s, and paid like a nickel for. So waited around a little after the event. It's probably about 20 minutes, and I'm just like, man, there's the guy that was announcing, the promoter dude or whoever that was, because they kept on talking about him. The guy that I saw that was taking tickets as we came in, and it was all digitally, so you just went off the list. Some other woman that was there with him, and then you had a bunch of the talent out there, and nobody was saying anything. I'm like, we got to get back because I got to work tomorrow. I know I'm not going to be there early, which I'm like, I want to get there earlier than I had anticipated. I was thinking noon or 1. I'm like, I know it's just going to be a shit show. If I can get there back to work somehow by 10 in the morning, I'll be happy. Because then I don't have that stress in my mind, even though I don't need it. But at the same time, it's just like, I hold myself to, it's not like a higher standard, but my work ethic, I hold myself accountable for what happens around me. A lot of people don't in the job world. I know that, but I'm different. You're different. We're different. So I'm like, I fucking then had to give Mike a ride home, and then over to Fargo, then jump back on the highway. It's not a freeway there, so it's not like 4 lanes, 70 miles an hour. I can cook at 75, but we're good. It was like 65, so go at 70. But then if it's midnight, 1 o'clock, you got a lot of creatures about. There's one we came through, and I had just woken up from about a 40-minute nap, and there was literally like you're gonna mount a deer, like you got a big like a 16-point buck or something, and you want like the breastplate on the mount, and that was the only thing that was in the road, like the head and the upper sternum, fresh. I mean, this couldn't have been in the last 15 minutes it was killed. And then Trista's like, did you see the 2 eyes over in the ditch on the other side? I'm like, no, I didn't. I'm glad. So yeah, we got home or got to her place. God, it was like 3:30, 3:45. Woke up, had the alarm. I had set it for 7. I'm like, no, I better set it for 8. And then yeah, left, I think, a little before 9, and got up to work, clocked in at like 10 to 10, and I don't even know what time I worked at 3:30, 4ish. I don't know. It just so it just when you don't get that good sleep, even decent sleep, that affects you for, especially at our age, it affects you for a week, 10 days until you can sort of catch up. So
which you technically don't ever do. You just
no,
you just reset your clock eventually.
yeah, and that's what I had to do Friday. I ate like a handful of chips and I don't even know what else, and I'm like, yep, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to sleep. Sorry, Carlos. I'm like, I can't even make it to the show. I'm just that tired. So yeah, it was fun again. I bought a poster there, and then Mike, I haven't even shown what he had a box of stuff too. So
Arn Anderson.
because he had come up to Fargo, I think, a couple of years ago, and had a signing. And then there's the Suzuki, which again, and the other guy fought, which I don't really give two shits about, because it was his federation, his promotion, and of course you're going to throw out a ton of money to try to get him. And again, it wasn't a bad match. You like Flair, you know what those matches are going to be. His, if you look him up online, any of his matches, it's a lot of like the knife edge chops. So I mean, you're just slapping the shit out of your chest. And I mean, they're either thuds or they're like legitimately a slap where you're like, holy balls, that's insane. So I mean, your chest gets red quick and the blood vessels start popping. So the match was solid enough. Again, I don't know. The guy semi hung with him. This isn't something, if you saw it on WWF, AEW, even ECW back in the day, you'd be like, I don't know what this is doing on TV. But again, for what it was worth, that fun time. Just sucks that all the other circumstances were going on, because I thought it was on a Saturday night, but I'd forgotten about the teachers conference weekend or whatever, so that's why it was on the Thursday. I'm like, why would you have it on Thursday? Why? That's right, kids are off Thursday, Friday, so they can go there and do whatever.
Way to go, Dave.
Well, that's how in tune to everything I was. I'm not even looking at the date. I'm just assuming it's a Saturday night because it's wrestling. So
Yeah, well, it happens, right?
be what, couple weeks, 2.5, then back down to the cities, and that's our sponsor tonight. Coors Light, tap into the Rockies, and I'm drinking.
Oh, so that we do have the co-sponsor this evening. Yeah, I was telling Dave earlier.
AEW, that Rampage on a Friday, and then the pay-per-view on Saturday. Just got to figure out where to stay. Trista asked me the other night, where do you want to stay? And wherever you want. I'm not even... You pick wherever. I don't care. I'm not even in that boat to even use what remaining brain function. It wouldn't matter. Somewhere there's a decent breakfast, probably. Or something where there's Popeyes or Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's somewhere nearby, just for some kind of chicken. For stuff and things and stuff.
We don't have the bingo cards yet, Dave.
I know we're not in the bingo card. We're in the betting parlay, though.
Yeah, well, I think you're at 7 on the profanity, so you still have a ways to go.
Shit.
8. Not that I'm keeping count or anything. Not that I'm keeping count or anything. I may have missed 1 or 2. I'm trying to be good, and I'll let the counter go up specifically with you this evening.
What's going on, Joe?
Of course, it would have been interesting, though, since DC bothered to respond to the topic, and his was fairly straightforward. Mine's going to be straightforward as it pertains to the topic. Since you have, 1,263,417, last I thought was the count, player collections, that has a tendency to potentially impact you more. Because from my perspective, most of my collecting was a guy who was already out of the league. So
yeah,
injuries didn't impact me per se. Other than the fact of him not making the Hall of Fame for a long time, that did help for a multitude of years. But even I'll put it in a different perspective. Since I'm also a set collector, and depending on what specific sets I'm looking for, and I still haven't bothered to convey any of that information because I'm keeping that close to my chest. I don't need people to sit there and be like, "Oh, Steven's interested in this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll go buy it for him." Or, "Oh, hey, I have this." No, I don't. I don't want any. I don't want any of that. Which is also why nobody has my list of 2002 Topps Chrome needs, because it's one of those in which I don't want people to just go out and pick up stuff. I could do that in time. I did pick up 13. I think I'm still down to like 42 left to complete that set. That one was specifically hand collated through box openings and stuff. So uh, some of the other ones I have, of course, were purchased as complete sets. But from an injury perspective, if it's like a key rookie or key players in that set, that can sometimes have an adverse effect on the price point.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a big tier guy and they're hurt for 6 weeks out of the season type situation, then under normal circumstances you'll see a kind of a dip in the pricing for those sets that are up for auction and or buy it now type situations. I took advantage of a lot of those situations and scenarios years ago when I was really I had shifted focus to the set collecting aspect. Uh, but now all the sets that I want are all older. So 95% of the players that are included in those sets are retired.
Mm-hmm.
So injuries don't do me any good from that perspective. Uh, but outside of that, I do have the Broncos auto collection. I do have a Broncos PC, but I injuries had no impact on any situation and circumstance pertaining to any pickups that I was adding to that specific collection. And there's no rhyme or reason surrounding that collection, so to speak, other than the one focus being wanting to get an autograph of all players that have played for Denver in a Denver uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and everybody needs to sit down. I do also have University of Texas collection. Prefer them in the University of Texas jerseys, and it's mostly autos. But that's something that I haven't bothered to even look at anything, and I can't even tell you when. And most of what is in that collection is stuff that I've either pulled or personally picked up. It's not really anything that I've gotten back in the heyday of YouTube. Hook'em Mikey at one point did hook me up with a crap ton of the University of Texas set that they put out. I don't know if you remember that set or not. Made by Upper Deck Dave.
Was that what, like an 03 or 05 Upper Deck?
I can't remember the year, but he sent me a crap ton of the base and the inserts, and he sent me 2 of the pennants for the World Championship pennants. And I took the time, I put it in order, and at some point I'll complete the base set and the various insert sets once I start getting crap a little bit more organized and checklisted and things along those lines. But that's my long-winded response to the topic of conversation this evening. Since I don't collect any other sports, it never really has impacted me one way or the other than from the set perspective back when I was actively looking during a few years back in starting roughly 2011 all the way up through about 2016. I kind of flip flop back and forth from time to time. But outside of that, not a whole impact on my side, really.
For one of the first collections I had was sort of paralleled each other. I think I collected Natron means before Favre. Because Favre didn't have, I mean, he had some stuff, but it wasn't like when it came to like 96, 97, 98. Then he was in everything. 93, 4, and even 95, he was in stuff, but 95 he started getting in more, but 93, 4, it wasn't much. Means was the guy I liked. I liked the big bruising backs. He was probably one or two examples, maybe three, where I still try to pick up stuff every once and again. But if he wouldn't have got hurt as many times as he did, I would have been more apt to stay true to that collection, not part it out in like 99 or 2000. And then over the years, just really slowly and cavalierly picked his stuff up at the just meandering pace that because I from 90 rookie year until probably 98, I would just constantly, whatever the newest, whatever the toughest, whatever it was, I would pay for it. Pay stupid amounts. I remember getting the Mirror Gold 96 for like $100, and that was back then. That wasn't that. This wasn't like now buying it for 100. This was like in 97, 98, paying that kind of money. But he kept getting hurt. San Diego, he got hurt. They cut him the next year, or cut him after the season. Went to Jacksonville. Parlayed that year where I think he had 2 years, 1 or 2 years there. I think he beat your Broncos that 1 year in the playoffs. Him and Jimmy Smith had some pretty good games in the playoffs there against Buffalo and then Broncos. He parlayed that to like a 2 or 3 year deal back with the Chargers. And I think he played maybe half of that 98 year and then was hurt again, nicked up or dinged up the rest of the year, and then really didn't do much from there on out. I mean, he signed Carolina, I think, in 2000. I don't think he ever did really much of anything with them. And not too long after that, I think he was out of the league, retired. So it's a what could have been if he would have stayed healthy. I mean, there was 2 games I was at that I could have seen Natron Means play, and he's injured both times.
Well, and on the flip side, what could have been if Terrell Davis wouldn't have gotten hurt?
Oh, yeah.
If, he would have gotten that injury a few years later,
mm-hmm.
He could have made a full recovery because of the knowledge of performing that surgery only improved, and the recovery time was still substantial, but the percentage of coming back 100% were, they greatly increased year over year.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate to always think what could have been in those situations. But at the same time, as a fan of the game and or a team or a player, you're still going to have that feeling of what could have been all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful that Terrell brought championships to Denver, and I will stand behind that until I'm blue in the face. If you didn't have him in the backfield, Denver would not have won those championships by any stretch of the imagination. It was just, a dynamic player. And, it's, do I wish he would have played longer? Yes. Uh, am I disappointed he didn't play longer? Yes. But at the same time, it was still an awesome experience to watch him play and what he did for Denver. And, I love the fact that he got into the Hall of Fame really based on his playoff performance. That's really what put him into the Hall of Fame. His playoff performance was career numbers. If you look at it from that perspective, for anybody who hasn't bothered to go look at Terrell Davis's playoff numbers, go check them out. You'd be surprised. They're like unbelievable. But it's one of those. It sucks. But on the flip side, I guess I'm glad he didn't play longer than what he did, because it started slowly reducing the number of cards over the years to pick up. And, of course, a card manufacturer is going to take all advantage of in the world once they hit the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So he's almost in everything nowadays. And since I don't focus on a lot of the newer stuff, it doesn't impact me a whole lot, but that doesn't mean that I'm not interested in getting stuff in later years. Mm-hmm. Prime example, I just got my Beckett order. Normally you ask, so I'll just go ahead and disclose. I mentioned this last episode, but I got some of the cards in for my 2002 Topps Chrome set, all rookies. Found a dealer that had, a good handful of them for what I considered fairly cheap. And so I went ahead and started doing some digging for Terrell Davis stuff. And I focused on some of the later year stuff. But I added 19 cards. It puts me one shy of my yearly goal, which, I don't have goals, but I forced myself to make one. So it puts me one short. And the nice thing about it is I have 2 months in order to reach my goal for 2021. So nothing major, nothing outlandish, nothing, just filling some holes. So
and if you would have played longer, continued to do well, that would have put those prices from a mostly manageable position to, oh shit, now I got to spend probably in that, and not up to like Emmett Smith or maybe Barry Sanders, but you're like last week, you had the target, you go from outside that target to maybe now you're in somewhere, not the bullseye, but you're one of those other rings that are in there. Man, that's a lot for that. This way,
without a doubt.
This way, you still have a fucking solid career, even if it's cut short, and you still can pick up the most of the cards without getting completely priced out. I mean, there's times when you're like, man, I wouldn't pay that for this card, but at the same time, it's not like something you've seen for like 40, 50 bucks. It goes up, let's say the next sale's at like 80. It's not like it went up to like 450, 500 or more. It's not like something where you got to sit down and like completely reevaluate how you're collecting, what you're collecting.
Yep. And I've talked about it before, and I'm seeing it more and more. People are putting Terrell in the Emmett Smith, Barry Sanders caliber of pricing. in a lot of scenarios. And I hate to say this because he's my favorite player. He's my main PC focus, but from a pricing perspective and the collectability, he's not on the same tier.
No.
And, that's just me being brutally honest. He's not at that tier. And when you see cards that, normally could sell between $60, $80, $100 or whatever, and they're putting them up for, $300 and $400, you're like, okay, are you just, trying to flex, get that flexclamation point going to, flex what you have, or are you actually, really interested in moving something? And I've always said, if you price something so high, you're looking to see if anybody bites, but you're not really looking to sell it.
Yeah.
Excuse the plane as it flies by. But it's like, why? In certain situations, those listings are free. So, I mean, it's not costing you anything. But if you're putting something up there for, $1,000, that's not a free listing.
No.
So you are paying money to list it. And if you're hoping for a taker, great. But, at the same time, we all know that the market is high on a lot of cards, a lot of players. We've seen some of it transition into football. Allen, Mahomes. Mahomes is still hot, but, just because he's not having the stellar year, everybody's freaking out about the stuff dropping and everything else. It's like, folks, he's already up here from a pricing perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, so if it'd be no different, So yes, I'm going to convey this to the stock market or related to the stock market. So if you're leveraging cards as an investment or part of your portfolio, and you're just invested solely in Mahomes, and you have $100,000 worth of value in Mahomes, and I'm saying value, I'm not saying cost, because most people, like we always talk about, you shouldn't know cost, but you have $100,000 in value. And for instance, this year, he's had kind of a crappy season. What's going on, Mike? So he's not performing at the level that he has in the past. It drops to $80,000 in value. So yeah, you took a $20,000 loss. It's no different than your 401k. Your 401k goes up and down based on the stock market. And it's based on the valuation of whatever stocks, bonds, whatever is, the plan invest that money in. Don't everybody tap the brakes. Mahomes he could have the worst year of his career this year. But I don't think that's going to be the ultimate end all be all, where he's going to be on the the decline for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. Josh Allen, Josh Allen's on the rise. He's doing well. You've got Burrow doing well. You've got Herbert doing well. But case in point, things go up and down, up and down, up and down. And, since we talk about injuries, you look at when Burrow got hurt last year, prices tanked, and you could get Burrow for fairly reasonable amount of money. What's the word of the wise from the influencers? Buy the dip. And for those type of players, it's going to happen. Your biggest dip is going to be when they're injured. And if you want something for your collection and or investment portfolio, of course, that's the time when you buy. I know investment advice. I know it's crazy. Hashtag invest.
And from you.
But I'm saying the same thing that all of us collectors have known since the beginning of time. This isn't new. It's not like somebody came out with some newly devised, thought process and all of this. The only difference is now that there's tools that can actually monitor the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? You can technically do the same thing on eBay. It would just take you more time. Just throwing that out there.
But then you couldn't be part of the floating head posse and brigade.
Well, I don't want to be a part of that brigade. I don't want to be any of them for Halloween. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, that'd be a scary.
And and you know what I'm referring to.
That's where, like with Josh Johnson, that's how I started collecting him. I've always collected some sort of Marlins player. It's just I like the old jersey. I liked, again, it's been like Mike Lowell. I liked him. I liked Sheffield. The guy collected a little. Edgar Renteria was more so back then. Derek Lee a ton. Pretty much anybody from when they won the title and they dismantled. Todd Dunwoody, Mark Kotze. Not many of the pitchers. I like Dempster, didn't pick up much of his stuff. But I mean, over the years, it picked people up. Derek Lee was probably the most prominent up until 08. It was about April of 08. I'm sure I've told this story a million times. I'd collected some Ugla up until that point, probably a healthy chunk of Ugla. And let me collect a pitcher because I know that never goes wrong. So I looked, I'm like Ricky Nolasco, I had some of his stuff. Sergio Mitre, I had some of his stuff. I don't want to collect Dontrell because that was one where I'm like, there's no way he's sticking around for a long time with that wonky wind up. And again, it's only so long before teams start picking up on his nuances, figuring him out. So I looked and well, Josh Johnson's got some stuff. He's from Minneapolis, or born in Minneapolis, and he had a decent year, solid year in 06, and then okay before he blew out his arm in 07. So I'm like, if I do this, I better do it now, because he's got probably 2 to 3 months before he comes back. And I don't want to say lucky I did, because I got a lot of stuff cheaper than I would have, but I know I was told on Freedom Cardboard by a couple guys, he's like, man, you should have bought middle to end of last year. You could have picked up stuff for nothing. Oh, well, that's good. But that's where, before it was terminology and floating head community, buying the dip, Team Schmedium and all those fools. Yet we were doing it before it even existed. Just because it's like, again, purely speculation, and I'm not sitting there trying to pick Sam Darnold when Sam Darnold hasn't shown anything to begin with, and hoping that he somehow all of a sudden figures it out just because he gets traded. Yeah, he had one game.
Buy Joe Flacco.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you're going to see group breaks of that 08 product again, and GSN Nick will come out of retirement just for that. So
that's gonna be the thing. You At the end of the day, you're probably gonna sell at the wrong time, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. You're
mhm.
gonna sell at the wrong time. Everybody always says timing is everything, and it's for instance, you look at the Jordan. The Jordan rookie started skyrocketing. It topped out at where it did, and then it. I don't want to say it bottomed, but I mean it went back to more reasonable price
Mhm.
points. Uh, I'm not going to sit there and throw out speculation of shill bidding or anything along those lines. Uh, can't prove any of that from that standpoint because of where those auctions were. Plus, you had the one private sale type situation. Uh, but it still raises questions. Why does something go to X extreme and then just like come back down to reality almost? So it makes you wonder, what were people thinking during that time? Or, as we've seen it, as collectors and watching, as you're bidding on something, there's multiple people bidding on the same thing.
Mhm.
You get into bidding wars. I've been in bidding wars. I've watched bidding wars take place when I used to sell a crap ton. So, I mean, it happens. But in the end, no matter when you sell, it's probably going to be the wrong time. Like I said, good, bad, and different. It's almost like fate kind of plays out that way almost.
Yeah, you never want to sell during an injury. That I've seen people do that and it makes no sense. Just if you've got X amount or even nothing into something, the guy's hurt, unless he's has a leg amputated or something of that nature, there's no need to sell. I mean, you're not going to get, should it be like your top priority, but your ROI is going to be minimal. You're probably taking it in the red. So if you can always hold out, even if it's like, again, a twisted ankle, see some of these clowns out there, I got to move it. He twisted his ankle. It's like, oh, okay. Give him 2 weeks and when he gets back out there and scores 4 goals in 2 games or has 40-point game and a 30-point game in the NBA or whatever, it makes them look stupid, which is not that hard to do. But
There is no science
no,
behind it. You can look at charts, you can look at peaks and valleys, but it's still fairly unpredictable in the scheme of things. The high percentage is unpredictable.
yeah,
There are some, the goats. We're going to go back to the goats conversation. Uh, since there's more than one, which we've talked about this, that's not possible. Greatest of all time, not greatest of all times. Not plural here, folks. Singular. Uh, and there's always going to be arguments for who it should be and who it shouldn't be, and whatever. We don't argue those points. We have our opinions, but we don't argue those points because in the end, it really is an opinion. There is not an award out there that says you are the GOAT. There's not, you don't go to the award show and get the award for GOAT in a given sport. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Because it's, well, there you go. Yet, who knows, right? It's not like an MVP. MVP can change year over year. Uh, you know, and to a degree, I think there's misrepresentation for the MVP every year. I look back at when, Manning got hurt and was out for substantial amount of time when he was with the Colts before Denver picked him up. Well, the Colts absolutely and utterly sucked without Peyton Manning. So if that's the case, then technically Peyton Manning should have been your most valuable player of the league because without him, your team sucked. Just throwing that out there. I know it's a little bit of a change in the dynamic of MVP, but, it means most valuable player. And if your most valuable player isn't playing and you suck because of it, then different spin. Makes you kind of think about things in a little bit different perspective. But in the end, everything is a crapshoot. Everything. Even for something as simple as run of the mill inserts for a player PC or a team PC. One can go for 99 cents. The next one can go for $10. Next one could go for $3. The next one could go for 25. You just don't know. There is no definitive science behind it. It's just the way it goes. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. No, Eric, we are not going into the generation of participation trophies and, everybody's a winner. No, horseshit. Oh, I dropped my first one.
See?
Well, it was only a matter of time, man. Come on.
I know.
This is why I don't claim to. Then go buy you one, Eric. Just go buy you one. And make sure it says GOAT. GOAT of what? I don't know. But this is also why I don't invest, so to speak. We can call it that because I mean the whole objective is to pass it down in hopes that it has value. But if you completely put the spin of it on a monetary value perspective, it loses its luster. It loses its hobby, nomenclature when you look at it specifically from an investment perspective. How much money do I have wrapped in this? Oh crap! How much money did I lose? How much money did I make? It just takes away from the whole dynamic of this being a hobby. Not that I'm faulting anybody for looking at expanding their portfolio, so to speak, and leveraging cards as an investment. There's nothing wrong with it. People have been doing it with comic books and coins and anything that's collectible. I mean, look, I hate to bring it up. Look at the Beanie Baby craze. I mean, people made millions from the Beanie Baby craze. Let's be real. And a ton of people got into it, and the demand, increased the supply, or the supply increased the demand. So of course it went to crap. But who's to say that doesn't make a resurgence? It's always possible. They're still collectible. They're still rare, at least the ones from the early iterations. But
And I'd say too, dipping back to the collecting and injuries, two guys that I still collect to this day, but again, you get hurt and you sort of, it's the out of sight, out of mind. One I put on the picture, Kajana Carter, and then I know he got dinged up. He wasn't like out for years, but injuries and just not. He had skill, but at the same time, it wasn't that top level that he had in the Quebec Major Juniors. Was Alexander Daig for Ottawa? I mean, number one pick, all these huge offensive numbers. Did okay for Ottawa, and I think that was more of a product of his environment there, because that team was just legit shit. I mean, they had a bevy of top tier picks, Yash and Wayne Redden, um, Chris Phillips, and then Dag, but they never could put anything together. So he's hurt a little bit. You're a number one pick. You're supposed to be the face of the franchise. And there's stuff I'm still picking up to this day. I mean, a couple mail days ago, I got that Stadium Club first day, the rookie year one. But if he stays healthy, that maybe that interest in hockey, instead of waning a bunch, because it's like, man, everybody I pick, either you fizzle out or you just don't perform up to snuff. And it's like, this is fun, but at the same time, I want somebody that's doing something and winning a little bit. What's going on, Paul? And I should have stuck with Salo and Ryan Smith, but again, at the time, it's Dennis Northcutt, Dennis Northcutt, Dennis Northcutt. So you get the laser focus on the one player, and I mean, Kerry Collins as well is finally get the Europe song out. It's the final countdown. So at 8:16 Central Standard Time, 9:16 for you those in the East, and 7:16 Mountain, 6:16 for our friends in the West Coast. Robert Lewis will be joining us.
Now the question becomes: is it Robert Lewis or is it going to be Chair? Will be the question.
At this point in time, I take either, just because we haven't seen him in a good while, but I'll take Chair all day long.
No offense, Bob. But then again, he ought to know that was coming, anyways.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll say injuries could probably right now, because you don't have, at least to what we'd consider, diehard, just like genuine player collectors. There's people out there that collect, again, current day players. We know that. But when you had it in the 90s, when you had your bevy of products out there, there was a lot more to choose from, a lot more that was visually appealing and different. It wasn't all the same. Well, look, there's a refractor type card. Well, look, there's a silver. That's just like a refractor. Oh boy, what a day. What a great day. Upper deck for hockey. Oh boy, there's a foil board card. It sort of has like a rainbow finish. Well, what else has a rainbow finish? Look at that Topps Chrome baseball card. That is that a refractor? Oh, that's that rainbow finish too. You had more to choose from if you could find some of those super rare inserts and parallels, especially when you're looking for a number one type insert out there, which is actually a parallel. When you look for those, that's the fun part. But you can look for this player, you can look for that player. Somebody gets hurt, oh, I'll look for the replacement. Maybe the replacement does well. You know what? I'm going to circle back to the original player. Because sort of, and that time, a lot of it was out of sight, out of mind. They go off to the wayside. It's like, what's the next? It hasn't changed in 25 years. It hasn't changed in 100 years. What's the next best thing coming up, or what's the next thing? That next thing pops and does well. Well, whatever it replaced, guess what? You sort of forget about it, especially if you're not invested in to whatever it is monetarily, or even with time and attention. So it always behooves people to continue to look for those opportunities. Just because somebody isn't playing now doesn't mean in 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, whatever the case may be, that particular player won't be relevant again and be a huge contributor to their team. So,
sorry, I had to give a score update. I just had a peek. I can't watch it right now. I have to kind of check it here and there. 2 runs in the first, 1 in the second for Atlanta. So, and Mike, we still haven't figured out what's going on because for the placeholder, we don't seem to have any issues. It seems to sit at the placeholder, but for whatever reason, in preparation, and Vinny mentioned this too. When we right before go live, I'll pull up the video link in preparation because I have both of them up when we go live. There is no image for whatever reason. It has to be either a YouTube issue or something along those lines, or maybe there's something out there that's we just haven't bothered to research to see if we can permanently fix it, because all of a sudden it started doing it. The last 4 or 5 episodes, I think the placeholder will show it, but for whatever reason it just has issues. Oh well, it happens. It is what it is.
So I think we'll ask Robert when he comes on in 2 minutes.
Yep. Got the timer going.
Synopsis. We may have to let him know about the short episode tonight, because I don't know if he's been dialed in or not. I know he's got his plate and cup runneth over as of late as well. So,
yep. It'll be interesting to see, I mean, like I said, I brought up DC's response. For him, it has no impact on him. It's not like he shifts and goes and focuses on players that are injured to pick up. It just, he kind of maintains whatever his thought process is for that time. For Vinny, it wouldn't really impact him from a Mario perspective. But, for some of the other stuff that he picks up from time to time. It could. Since he chose to not join us this evening. Could have been practice, though, too, or pro game or something. He didn't shed any light this evening as to why he may or may not be able to attend
No.
the broadcast this evening. Not that he owes us an explanation at all, but normally, he'll let us know in the event that he may not be able to make it. Oh, 5-0. Who hit a home run this time? Since it's just now the top of the third. 2-run homer, 2-run double. 2-run double. Which one? Sir Bobbeth Lewis. Interesting, sir. Interesting. Welcome, sir.
What's going on, guys?
It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. I had been listening to some good conversations going on. I just hadn't got a chance to comment, so then I asked permission if I could jump on, and I got the okay. So here I am. I've done my parental duties for the night.
So I have to ask, Bob. You asked permission to remove your testicles from the wife's purse for the evening?
It's my 8-year anniversary today.
Oh, well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
My
parents.
I have to give you crap from time to time, Bob. It's been a while. You know what
sure.
you know what to expect when you join us.
I mean, there's no reason for me to dance around how it went down. I just come out with it and be like, look, I just asked if it, I called it permission, but like, do I have your blessing to go play with my friends? You know what I mean? So I was, and I would be up that much longer, which also means I'm at like 20 minutes or so, but I would be back depending on, if you guys are still on.
Well, it is a short one this evening. Poor Dave had the day from absolute and complete utter hell, and he has to get up earlier. We'll say,
whoa,
because it's grand opening at the new store tomorrow, so they finally got everything moved.
If you went to sleep 12 minutes ago, you'd get 5 hours of sleep.
Well, 6 hours here, but yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
7 hours. It is only 8:00. Dave, come on.
You should spend the night at Steve's tonight. You get to sleep in an hour.
We're on the same time zone. He's obviously not mathing very well today. That ought to tell you where his mind is, Bob.
Yeah,
clearly I'll never be an influencer, neither of us, but it's all right. I had this. You guys were. I don't know. I had this thought. I can't decide if I wanted to bring up something new or save it for another time when maybe we could explore it more. I think that's what I'll do, but I'll touch on. Dave, you were mentioning like guys that like a Kajana Carter that or anybody that fizzled out for one reason or another. Maybe you had a year or two. You weren't really able to get invested in Kajana very much because it was like early in his career, right?
right away.
Was it his rookie year?
Training camp.
Oh, dang.
I think during or after the first preseason game.
But I always fell into like collecting traps of, Carlos Baraga. What did he do? And he was hot for like a second. Like I was like, oh, let me get in on this guy. Or Fernando Tatis Sr. when he did his thing for like a series. I was like, oh man, I've never seen anything like that before. Or Eric Gagne, you know what I mean? Like just guys that, I mean, you can't really call them flashes in the pan. It's that ever elusive understanding of I'm good in my sport versus hobby good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good in sport doesn't necessarily transition to good in hobby terms.
Nope.
I
And
think that
like
I
the
think
opposite,
that's
some people would say it's for like a Bryce Harper who's been, some people would say, mediocre his whole career. He carries a high demand, but you know, he can be a pretty dynamic player though.
Yeah.
yeah, but I think that gap though is shrinking as it pertains to if you're good in sport and you have the numbers and the stats, you're going to see things transition more
I
into the
mean,
hobby world.
I can hear Carlos shouting like the most obvious example, like Mike Trout, right? His his hobby is way inflated from how good he is on the field. No, um,
No, that's
I,
true though.
I've only seen highlights of Mike Trout. I've never seen like him actually play a game. I don't know anything about his game other than what I've seen in highlights. So of course everybody looks good in highlights, you know.
When he's on, he's on. When he's on, he's on.
Yeah.
It's and that's the only way I can put it. And the only reason why I can say that is, living in Texas, the Rangers play the Angels what seems to be 62 games per year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an exaggeration, but and
Yeah. That math
Trout is.
doesn't check out.
I know it doesn't, but Trout has always been a Ranger killer for years.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So it's one of those in which, not saying that it's specific to the Rangers, but when Trout is on, he is a formidable player. He's got the skill set, but it's one of those in which, yes, I know Carlos is probably going to cuss at me in a text message here before too long. Uh, when he's on the field and he's playing, he is a good player, but his hobby collectability shouldn't be based on that one, what I would consider, what's the word I'm looking for, inflated statistic. That's what that's the whole thing that kind of really dictated his hobby collectability.
Hmm.
It's WAR, isn't it? Isn't that the statistic that
Oh yeah,
everybody talks about with him?
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
With
and I can't speak on any of the next gen stat stuff. I don't know much about it. I want
looking
to.
at like
Mhm.
the low end Trout autos where they sell 400, 350 is absolute bottom of the barrel if you get a great deal. Hashtag good deals only. Most of that stuff's in that 500 range for the
We
low
talking
end.
low numbered? What are we talking? Like bottom barrel? You just search Trout autographs and go to sold listings and the
I'm guessing like a Gypsy Queen that isn't numbered. Uh, Maybe an Allen and Ginter, like
yeah.
the mini. Not like a rip card mini, but just like
Yeah.
the framed one. Stuff of that nature, like a Bowman Platinum without a serial number on it. Just
You're
stuff that.
saying Trout autos worth having.
Well, I'm going to give a comparison where
Yeah.
his stuff is 500, 600, and that for the most part, that's where you're starting, or that's where it's going to be. If you just want to get in the door, yeah, there'll be something that's cheaper, but at the same time, you you'll have to get lucky, either at a show or somebody's got just a dumb buy it now that's cheaper than the going rate that they're just
Right.
looking to get out from it. But you've got Willie Mays stuff that's in that same ballpark and cheaper. Willie Mays, that's not Willie Hayes Mays. That's the Willie Mays. And again, he's not signing anymore.
I
Stan
mean, I,
Musial. Stan Musial cards are fucking criminally cheap. Again, this isn't somebody that's just like a Tuffy Rhodes opening day. I hit 4 home runs and you Al
yeah.
Bundy it for the rest of your life. Yeah, Stan Musial is one of the top 25 players of all time, and he's treated as such. It seems more so like the Bobby Doors, the George Kells that have like 8 million autos and cards out there. Sure,
Yeah.
there's certain stuff that people want. A lot of the vintage, some of that certified stuff. But in the same breath, it's like, God, I want Trout, I want Harper. Now I want Garrett Cole.
I did do a quick search, and the cheapest one that I found was $350.
Okay,
And
but yeah,
I just stuck with the most recent, and I didn't go subsequent pages or anything along those lines. Most of them are $500 to $600.
and that's the thing too, where I won't make it. Oh, I'll make an excuse, but let's say he plays this year, it's not as cheap as they've been. He's been out since May, so once again, sort of that out of sight, out of mind. And right now, if you're angling for a Trout, you probably can get one for, again, not to Carlos's argument, but a decent price. But still, I'd rather.
And something to keep in mind, Dave, a lot of best offers. So I'm not going to go do the deep dives and stuff to see.
Yep.
But I mean, when you pull it up, like the first 25 listings outside of best offers, they're up there. They're up there.
And I'd rather, maybe in 20 years you regret it, but I'd rather get, again, the guys I've talked about for the football that I want. I'd rather get some of these, a Hank Aaron, even though he's got a lot of stuff still floating around. You can find a nicer one you're going to pay up, and that's the early 2000s, maybe that late. He's got one, and I don't know if it's on 99 UD Century Legends, or I don't know if he had one in 97 Elite. But if you can get those type of cards, they're not going down. There's no risk of, oh my God, it's Hank Aaron's auto, and you get people like, oh, what a shitty player. Yeah, he played in that juiced ball area. Oh, he sucks. No, you get those people, throw bricks at them. I'd rather spend on that, and again, personal preference. At the same time, somebody could be, well, Trout's going to be the best ever. Well, history hasn't been written yet. So just to see that, it's always that where you're spending so much on. We could go to basketball. I really don't want to go the basketball route because we all can use the same examples there. But Trout, Harper, Acuna, Tatis Jr., Sodist, who at least with Soto, you have these numbers that are backing up everything else. You can see that he's drawing more walks than anyone without striking out Adam Dunn numbers or Rob Deere numbers. You see that youngest batting champion, or one of the youngest, World Series title, even last year in a down year, still does amazing. Fights and claws from a early season swoon to still finish, I think, over 300. I don't even know where he ended up batting average wise, but to have somebody like that, where so far, knock on wood, he hasn't got hurt. Acuna has. Tatis Jr., his shoulders dinged up the whole year. Harper is pretty much following Trout step for step, where when they're on the field, they're pretty good players. Trout more so, especially with the glove, but at the same time, they're not bringing any titles to their respective franchises. I know with being a Phillies fan, and if Ed were here, he'd be littering the comments with all kinds of diatribe and his nonsense from the East Coast. But the pricing and like what should be the realized prices of these guys is just it doesn't nothing is in the same boat or where it should be. It's when you buy on potential, you tend to get burned a lot more often than when you buy on the solid player, the Hall of Famer, the guarantee. When you don't buy the lead pipe lock, yes, the return can be greater. A lot of things have to go right. I'd rather for those invest in like the Hall of Famers that are in the Hall of Fame, not future possible Hall of Famers.
Stick to the tried and true, so to speak.
Yeah, it's again.
Yeah, and that's. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
It always baffles me that, and I think it's the people that just want to take those chances and hope that they come out on top. Again, give me Dick Knight Train Lane cut autographs 10 days of the week over a Tua auto, a Herbert auto. As much as I like, and again, I like Herbert, I like Joe Burrow more for fantasy purposes. Well, Felix PA was a Cubs prospect, so you have to dump a ton of money in there because that's where Yankees and Cubs, they're the best prospects, circa 1998. But I don't know. You think, and it's always with any aspect in life, common sense would prevail, but nowadays that's not even a 50-50 proposition. That's probably a 30-70. The common sense is going to prevail because other mitigating factors, and most of the time those factors are idiots rambling on about nothing.
Which you do best, Dave.
So, well, I don't. There's others that do it better.
But I'm with you. I some aspects I understand the newer stuff fetching higher prices than a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
You have more quote unquote manufactured scarcity these days in the products. You introduced patches. There's a lot of things that push collectors towards some of those type products or those products with those players, I should say. Mike Trout, all his rookie stuff. Yes, he has some low number stuff, but it's either on card or sticker autographs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can go back years ago and look at Topps 5-star and stuff along those lines, and there's a Hank Aaron on card autograph somewhere in the vicinity. Maybe not numbered, maybe numbered, who knows? But I've never understood the dynamic because if you look at things, all the records that are broken are all newer stuff outside of like the 52 mail or like the 48 Robinson potentially. Some of those iconic early vintage cards still fetch a lot of money. But at the same time, when you talk about autographs specifically, you're almost paying pennies on the dollar for a Hall of Fame autograph compared to some of these, superstars of the now era, the modern and the ultra modern era.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like you. I don't understand. I don't get it. Why would I go spend $2 million on a LeBron? This is me personally. Why would I spend over $2 million on a jersey number patch autograph of LeBron James from Exquisite. Great card. I'm not taking away from it. I'm not taking away from, what it means to the hobby. I'd rather have a 52 PSA 8 mantle. I'd take the mantle all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Although we all know LeBron James will make the Hall of Fame. It's a given. It's going to happen. But to me, I'd rather focus on something. I don't want to use the term iconic. That's more meaningful to me, so to speak. Because like when I was growing up and talking about, and getting the Beckett's and everything else, I always looked at that 52 in the price guide. Always. Just to see what it was sitting at. Mind you, this was before, grading was a thing.
Yeah.
But I always still looked at it. And it was like, that's something that I would love to have. A 48 Jackie. A 33 Gowdy Ruth. Yes, I'm talking baseball, although everybody knows I'm a football guy, but still, if I'm talking long-term collectability in my eyes, I'm going for quote unquote the tried and true all day long. Granted, I don't have $2 million to spend, so I wouldn't have either one of them, regardless of that situation or scenario. But I would always still lean towards somebody that's already there, who has that, in their resume, so to speak. So.
Well, yeah, the 52 mantle rookie.
Hashtag allegedly.
The 57 tops Jim Brown.
The 76 Peyton.
68 Nolan or 69?
Oh, don't give me the line with that one. With him and Koosman.
Yeah, but
I can't remember the year.
I'd go even a low grade. Give me a 3 that is eye catching. Give me a 2.5. Give me a 3.5. I don't need to have an 8 or a 9. Those would be nice. But something that just you're like, oh, okay, price isn't terrible. I can do this. I think I've got a 4 Johnny Bench. So it's like, well, that it works. It's nice and centered. I mean, corners are a little rounded. It's fine.
But and Carlos has talked about this. At some point, for vintage, the high grades are typically low pop. I mean, that's a given. But at some point, people are going to start. Okay, well, Pop 10 or a PSA 10 or BGS 9.5 or whatever, or SGC 9.5 or 10 on a high grade iconic vintage card. I'll use the term iconic. Most run of the mill people can't afford them. So you start looking at the 9s, you start looking at the 8s, you start looking at the 7s. And you start going down the list. And, it becomes a supply and demand thing. As there's less 6s available from a supply perspective, people are going to start looking for the 5s.
Mm-hmm.
Or the 4s, and it's just going to keep going down the list. So from that perspective, those vintage cards that are highly sought after, key cards, they're still going to maintain. To me, I'd be very surprised if they didn't hold value or increase in value year over year. Just because of, there's the supply is limited compared to other stuff. That's going to be a personal question, Brad. Bob's actually over there like laughing at something, obviously.
I'm trying to, like, you guys, I don't know. I didn't touch any of my settings, but I feel like I can't hear anything.
But you just heard me.
Right, back. And when I was trying to fix it, all of a sudden your voice came from within the phone somewhere. So it's all good.
It's magic.
Technology.
Brad, that's going to be a personal thing
mind?
across the board, honestly.
What
What
was
is
the
that?
question or statement?
Here, I'll pull it up for you. Oh, sorry, Dave.
Yeah, this is a
We both
Brandon Lau bobblehead from a stadium giveaway from Tampa. So my buddy sent me that. It's pretty cool.
So there's the question.
That is a great question, and I do agree with Steve. Some people find, beauty in that, like, vintage, that drawn picture. I don't know if we're talking like pre-war stuff. Like, I don't find that particularly attractive, but so I think people are collecting. If I was like in a position to buy pre-war, I mean, I'm gonna have like a Ty Cobb in my collection just because you kind of have to or whatever. But I don't collect like that anymore. I don't feel like I have to have a piece of everything. I like ugly is such a subjective word, right? Like, some people hate 72 tops, but other people love it.
That's one way to put it, Eric. It's one way to put it. And I can't disagree, Brad. There, beauty is in the eye of the beholder in a lot of situations. And from a vintage perspective, I think to a degree there's the collectability aspect and what the said card means from the collectability aspect. So it's me personally. If I had endless funds, I think the Honus Wagner is uglier than hell. But if I had endless funds, I would own one just because of what it means. I'd own a Ty Cobb. It's just, it's the history, it's the nostalgia. And we always talk about touching on the nostalgia aspect, which is why a lot of us still collect to this day, because we all started as kids and we never stopped. Or if we did, we took a hiatus because, life kind of took over. But we found a way to come back to, something that we enjoyed. It's the nostalgia aspect. Most of us didn't grow up in the era of, the 1930s or anything along those lines. So we can't sit there and talk about, oh, yeah, I remember when I pulled those cards. No, we can't do that. But it's the history and the nostalgia of what the actual card is, I think, more than anything. Aesthetics are irrelevant. And then we have this guy.
Buy the dip. This year's Trees is next year's gold mine, and sheesh.
Shut up.
Thank you. What's going
You
on?
know it was. You know it was going to happen. You know it was going to happen.
Is Dave out for the night? Oh, okay.
No, he's back.
Long story tonight while I'm late, but I'll tell you later on.
Is it anything having to do with what your wife texted me earlier?
Yes, it was that, and I can't say anything about that, because there's all kinds of don't say that stuff, and yeah, but it was cool. So the kid's happy, and I live to have a happy bunch of kids.
Amen to that.
That's as cryptic as it comes.
Well, if you can't say anything, we understand you can't say anything. I mean, it's one of those. But I wanted to ask
About
if that's
what?
what it was, because Meredith did send it to me, but I haven't had a chance to go into more depth, I should say.
You want to see something cool?
No.
Okay, anyone else?
Sure. Yeah. And I'm not just saying that.
Oh, sweet Lord. There it is.
Wow.
97, 98, X-Force. Signed. by
Nope.
Martin. No.
6'7".
Ooh. They had signatures
nice.
in 6'7"?
Yep. Roder, Iginla. Don't even need to say who that is. And then Gretzky.
Jaeger. It's Jaeger.
It's Jaeger. Jaromir Jaeger.
Yeah.
Stupid team medium.
Jaromir Jaeger.
I think he played golf at a tournament in Lake Tahoe. Fucking idiot. Fucking dumb.
They called him Jaeger in Pittsburgh because they said he liked to drink Jaeger when he was out partying. But that's allegedly. Hashtag allegedly.
Benny, what did we tell you about using the bathroom when you're on video?
Yeah. Convenient.
Somebody's phone is vibrating.
I'm losing out on eBay auctions while I'm here, but that's good.
No, it's not. Go bid on them, Bob. Take them down, Bob. Take them down if you need to. Take them down.
Good deals.
No.
So before we
Enjoying
get to
my
the
current moment.
before we get to the point to where we get close to closing up or whatever, since Dave has an early night, guys, if you want to hang on a little bit after we wrap up for the evening, I'll hang and chat with you guys. Dave will not, but I did want to give a shout out to Mr. Bobby Lou, Sir Bobbeth Lewis, as he is titled here this evening, for hooking me up with the last two cards for my 2021 Topps Series 1
What's
set.
the other three?
Do what? I don't even remember. I put them in my dupe stack.
Oh, okay.
I put them in my dupe
Yeah, I
stack
thought
because
it was like a message that at one point you were like, "Hey, sorry, there's like three other ones. Do you have these ones as well?" So I don't know. No big deal. I'm
no,
glad
it was
you
just the
got them.
two. Nope, it was just the two.
Okay, cool.
And at some point, Bob has the task to start working on other sets because he needed two cards for 98 Topps Chrome, in which I found. So I'm actually going to get to complete one of Bob's sets. Woohoo!
That's kind of where I'm at right now. Just taking what I have and building sets. I got a lot of 18 update Chrome, and that's just but all the Bowman stuff. I'm just trying to put it all together so I can.
No, I need you to go backwards. I don't have any.
Yeah, I know.
Stuff. I need you to go. I noticed you go backwards. Mostly football too. Maybe a few basketball I could help with, but
Did
needs to go backwards.
Fleer metal stuff?
What year?
Probably 95, 6, or 7, maybe.
94, 95 is the first year for hockey, then 96, 97.
Are you working on basketball, I'm guessing? Or are you working on football?
It's actually the baseball set. That's just the one I have the most of.
Yeah, I didn't open it.
I haven't been able to really explore like what the chunks of cards that I have. So what I've been doing is one sport at a time. I've done baseball, basketball, and hockey. I'll put out like 6-foot tables, unfolding tables, and then all 92 tops go here, all 93 upper deck go there. So every sport is organized by like release, and then if it's a set that I think is worth putting together, I might go for it based upon how much I actually have. Like, do I have a shot at it? Am I at least halfway there? Whatever it is. So we'll see.
Yeah, you have the same philosophy that I do. As I'm going through and sorting and doing stuff like that, if I'm close to half complete, and if it's one in which there's rookies in it, and I have some of the higher valued ones,
yeah,
it's worth a shot potentially.
Well, that's why I went for the 98 Chrome, because I have the Manning and I have the Moss. I've got a couple of Mosses, but I kept one of the Mannings, so I'm like, I gotta be close to this.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, I was.
Yep. Well, you can mark it as complete because I have them. They're sitting here in my office.
Nice.
With your name on it.
Awesome.
Larry Centers and John Mobley.
Yeah, that was it.
And Mobley's coming out of the PC, by the way.
It's coming out of what?
It's coming out of the PC.
Oh man, was that a 30-year card for him?
That's irrelevant. I remember I have the 98 Topps Chrome set complete, so it's not like I don't have another one.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
It's just coming out of the Broncos collection because I start throwing all my Broncos and stuff in boxes. So
the first time I went through, I came up with I needed Moss, Charles Woodson, and Fred Taylor, but I knew I had them. Oh, nice. AEW's
So I will not be.
Look at Dave.
Showing off. Who's like their didn't they were bringing in like Sting and stuff like last year?
He's still there.
Earlier this year, wasn't it?
He's been around for a while now. They just brought back to them or in for them CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole. All those guys were at the end of like August. There's rampant speculation
Bryan?
that
He's still WWE.
No, that's Bryan Danielson. He's now in AEW.
Who's the
Daniel Bryan? Daniel Bryan is Danielson, but he's now in AEW.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna have to sit down, Bob, and I'll explain wrestling to you.
Oh.
I might have to join that conversation.
Join my Discord.
Do you have a Discord for wrestling? All things wrestling, or specific to like AEW?
$3.99 Patreon per month.
Yeah, name changes when you jump from a federation to the other federation. What your moniker?
Yes, because you can't be the same guy. I get it.
Some guys can, depending on like the rights that they have. Like Adam Cole went from Ring of Honor to WWE or to NXT to AEW, all as Adam Cole.
I mean, Sting has been Sting since WCW.
But he's got rights to that name too.
Yeah, right.
In that regard, not just the singer Sting.
Does wrestling induct people into the Hall of Fame if they're still active?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And a wrestler never retires.
WWE is the only one that I know of that actually like has the whole big production for the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
There's a one and I've said this story before too. When I went to what is it, Rock USA, something in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, back in. I'm wearing it, Brad. This what's with it? It's me. I'm with it. What was it? 2016. Before his wedding, a few months later, I was sort of like the groomsman or the best man thing. He said, "Come out here and we'll go to this and do this, whatever." The next weekend, somewhere in Iowa, I had bought tickets for like some wrestling Hall of Fame thing because Bob Backlund was going to be there, getting inducted, and like 4 or 5 other living. And this was more so a combination of actual like amateur grappling and then the professional. And it wasn't like, who wants to hear Coco Beware? You're going to go in the WWF Hall of Fame. What? You might as well have a ring post going there too, because I mean that's about as much as they contributed. So they've got a different Hall of Fame, but it's not the huge production, obviously, that WWF does when it's like, oh, WrestleMania weekend. You can watch like the Wednesday afternoon, watch the Hall of Fame ceremony because everybody's 100 years old and they got to get to bed by 6. So where it used to be that Saturday night before WrestleMania and everybody's excited. Well, he's from Princeton, Minnesota, so anybody from Minnesota is a fucking idiot. I would know.
Aren't you from
You're
Minnesota?
you're still way short, Dave. We're coming in on the under.
Fuck.
We're still way below. So when we end the show, that's when you just want to start just throwing them out there.
Cocksucker. Son of a bitch. Fuck.
Getting closer.
Shit. But yeah, there's TNA, or now Impact Wrestling, has I think one person go into their Hall of Fame, which they've been around for what now? I think 18, 19 years. So it's like, who's in the Florida Marlins Hall of Fame? Does it really matter at this point? No. But I mean, they have that during, I think, Bound for Glory, which is in October. Now they're pay-per-view this month. So I think Christian's been in there, or that he went in. Kurt Angle might have went in. I don't even know who else would have went in. Jeff Jarrett, maybe he was in there. So I don't know. It's WWF. It wasn't just who agreed with Vince on that day. It's sort of like the influencers. It's like they're all circle jerking the one floating head because they're all the goats. Instead of, well, hey, this guy over here did real well. He should be in the Hall of Fame, even if he wasn't like an old Iron Mike Sharp. That's somebody who had a good career before WWF, was a jobber in WWF, but in the same vein, you knew if he was fighting one of the main guys, a Macho Man, George Steele, Morocco, Hogan, any of those guys, you knew he'd put on a good match. It'd be a good, fun fight, even though he's going to lose every time. It wasn't like a 2-minute match. It would be about a 5-6 minute match. He'd get his offense and look good, and then he'd succumb to whatever the finishing maneuver would be. Kurt Hennig. Minnesota has a Hall of Fame, but they haven't done anything for a while. I went to the first one, was able to meet Kurt Hennig's mom, dad, and then meet Greg Gagne, Vern Gagne's son. So got pictures there, and Larry the Axe. Kurt's old man died, I don't know how many years ago. Last couple. But I was able to meet him a few times and try to talk with him, but I wasn't
Does anybody
much of
stand
anything
out?
at that point.
Does anybody stand out to you that like lived up to expectation? I don't know how many guys you've met, but anybody like fall short of expectations or exceed them or surprise you that like they're cooler than you thought they might have been?
Lair was okay. I was shocked he couldn't spell Naomi's name. I mean, he had to be told like 3 times by me, like, how do you spell it? And he still fucked it up on the 8x10. Piper, same way. He was, again, the drugs and the partying, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Angle, you could tell his whatever he was into screwed him up, the painkillers, and because I mean he just sort of had a vacant look. Haku was probably the absolute coolest.
Huh.
I mean that's a guy that's where I always tell people that aren't wrestling fans that remember from their childhood, go back, type in your guys, Haku, Honky Tonk Man, $1 Million Man, Demolition. You'll find them on YouTube. It's called a shoot interview. Usually it's just like, hey, what happened during this time? What happened during this time? And they'll give synopsises. And some of these stories about Haku, there's one, I think, in a Montreal bar where he ripped out somebody's eye because they're fucking around in there. And I mean, it's like, and it wasn't just like, okay, there's one story and that's it. It's like anywhere any of them went, it's like you start pumping up on him. It's like, you're going to get your fucking ass kicked.
Yeah.
And I asked him, because I was a huge Bad News Brown fan. Anytime you talk about sewer rats and like that's your legion of people. I'm like, how bad was this dude? I mean, how legitimately? And he just looked at me. He's like, I haven't been asked about him in like 15 years.
Huh.
And I said, I've heard stories about you. Your stories are legendary. He's no longer around, and I would love to meet him. But what about him? And we talked a little bit. I mean, he was just cool as fuck. And you usually don't find that. A lot of these guys have been through so much with drugs.
Like Mick Foley seems like a pretty normal dude, you know.
He's one of the guys that's. I was supposed to meet him, and we got a snowstorm with like 2.5 feet, so I couldn't chance it in Duluth, where it's pretty much all hills going down to where I would have been, and I would have been stuck for 2-3 days because you couldn't get through their plowing because all the cars were on the streets. So as much as I didn't want to miss out, I had to there, but that's one I'd love to meet. Honky Tonk Man's exactly. I didn't even pay to see him because he was such a cunt. I mean, I just said hi to him walking by, and he just gave me a grunt. He's like, I'm like, well, fuck you too, asshole. Thankfully, I'd heard about him many a time that he thinks he's bigger than what he's been portrayed as. So, yeah, this is true. I mean, there's a lot of those guys that are gone now, Paul, that took those chair shots to the head, which is sad because I'd love to have met Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. I love those two. Again, notwithstanding Benoit, what he did after the fact, his in-ring ability was amazing. The way to tell a story, but with some of these guys, you can't go in there and be like, oh man, I can't wait to meet the Undertaker or Brock Lesnar. I'm so excited. You're not probably going to get much of anything. There's not going to be like good banter, good rapport. They're not going to be like, hey bro, I appreciate you. Good deals only. Let's see you at the next show. My parents are flying me out. Whatever. Most of the guys have pretty much lived up to what I expected. Some have been super nice. The very rare few have been something where you're like, wow, I was not expecting that, and I'm not a fan of theirs anymore. Because I mean, most of the time, especially if you follow wrestling, you've heard of incidents like meeting the NWO minus Hogan a few years ago. I'm like, okay, Kevin Nash is a dick. Bischoff seems to be fairly nice. Scott Hall, depending on the day, if he's got a beer or two, he's probably decent. If he's had whiskey, he's probably going to be a piece of shit. That day, everybody's fine. I mean, they're great. Sting is super quiet. He's never been shy to talk about his Christianity. And again, for me to have him as one of my favorite guys that doesn't match up with us personally, at the same time, he doesn't come out there in like a big Mr. T gold chain and a Bible and starts
Who's
pointing at
that?
people like repent, and all this stuff.
Who are you
He
talking
does that
about?
in his own time. He knows when the character's on. He knows when the character's off. So I mean, I respect him for that. Where it's not you just get thrown in your face about that stuff.
Who are you talking about, Dave?
Sting.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's. I think he's got some actual like Christian movies out there too. His real name is Steve Borden.
Steve Borden. Interesting. I'll check it out.
Because again, he's super down to earth, and I mean, it always helps when I've got Naomi with me. Otherwise, they see me, and it's just like another fat fucking idiot fan that probably lives in his parents' basement that masturbates to PWI issues from like 1996 or something.
Can you imagine how many guys of that description have like come up to them and like tried to like talk about some match from like 1998, like, and do you remember when you grabbed him like this, and you know, like just some minute detail that they've been hanging on to for 13 years.
There's a lot that do that, and I'm like, if I've got a memory that's real like specific, I'll say something. I'll say it in passing. I'll say, I know you've probably heard this shit a billion times, but the match with you and whoever, I fucking loved it then. As time has gone on, I loved it more. And I hate to say that, but I really appreciate what you've done for the fans over the years with your giving up your time, your body.
So let me ask you this: as a true wrestling fan, can you rewatch like, you know, SummerSlam '96? Like, are there certain events that, you know, like they're enjoyable for you no matter, like, obviously you know what happens. Like, I don't really rewatch old World Series. Maybe if I haven't seen it, or like, you know, the 1960 Pirates or something. Like, I'll check it out if there's some. They've ran like the audio clips from it and just kind of have it on the background, but never. So, do you have that with wrestling, like watching WrestleMania 3 or?
There's times if you get bored, I'm like, I know WrestleMania 5 because it was Hogan Savage, Mega Powers Explode.
Oh, that was 5. Okay.
3 would be the one with
Wasn't there
Andre.
Something big on 3 at 3 too?
Andre and Hogan in the Silverdome. Like 1 and 2, I don't really care for. 1, it was more of a spectacle, and a lot of people were sort of transitioning out. But then you had like your entertainment was Liberace. Like what? It's like, really?
That don't fit.
But as you go on, 7, when it was Hogan and Slaughter, and they were going to be in the LA Coliseum. but they had to go into like the LA Sports Arena because there's too many threats of like snipers. People were legitimately going to want to kill Sergeant Slaughter for turning on the U.S., becoming like Iraqi sympathizer, and like going around with it wasn't the Iron Sheik, but he was in the corner, but it was somebody else too. Oh, I can't even remember who it was. And they were just going around with their Iraqi flags and like Slaughter like talking down to Hogan. And back then, not many people talked down like that to Hogan and the fans, and calling them the Pukamaniacs and all that stuff. The one that I love watching is I think it's in Houston at the Astrodome, that WrestleMania 17 or X7, and then Colonel Mustafa. But who was he before Clint? He was somebody else before he became Colonel Mustafa. And then 18, which was up in Toronto, which had The Rock against Hogan. And then Stone Cold was against Scott Hall, but Scott Hall was still, he wasn't right mentally there in the head and with his drinking game. But those two were, I mean, I could plug those in right now and just be enjoyed.
Who's the current WWE champion?
I know Roman Reigns for SmackDown. I don't even know who would be, because they got a Raw champion and a SmackDown champ, or a Universal and the World champion, and one's on each show or whatever. I don't even know who's on the other one.
Well, and I didn't mean to like put you on the spot or anything. So Egg is texting me and he said, so he helped me with something. So I found a couple blasters of Topps Chrome WWE, and I knew he was that. And I still don't know if he's messing with me, but he just said he pulled a 1-of-1 superfractor of the WWE champion. So I'm like, is that good? I mean, is that something that you could sell? I don't know. He might be messing with me though. So
no, not Egg.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's what you were looking for, Dave. And I know
Okay.
Clint put Colonel Mustafa up there too, but Colonel Mustafa was Iron Sheik. But that's when he changed allegiance. And I quoted my source, thanks to Google, because I didn't remember that. But I remember
Nikolai
his
Volkov too.
No, Nikolai Volkov was Russia.
Yeah, but it looks like him in the picture.
But that's who he tag team with before Boris Zukov came in like '88, and they became the Bolsheviks. It was Sheik and Volkov earlier, like in like '86, '87.
Yeah, I was just looking at a picture, thanks to Google, and it has Hogan with the belts in the middle with the ref, and it looks like Volkov and Sheik in Iraqi army uniforms. Iranian army uniforms? I'm not sure.
But Hogan had that belt how many times too during the...
Yeah, but it says Slaughter versus Hogan. But I digress.
You'll have to send that via text. And
Yeah, Dave will be able to figure it out.
yeah.
But on that note, we are now over the 2-hour mark, Dave. And you're still
one night.
And you're still a little under, by the way. Not much. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Shut up.
There you go.
You still have a few more.
Well, Dan or DC will lose some money.
Depends on what he bet, right?
Hope he didn't bet the house.
Never been.
I said always take the over, but I didn't say how much to place on the over.
That is true. That is true. We did not provide investment advice.
No. Never. So with that, as much as the conversation's good and going towards wrestling, I'm been notated that someone has to wake up at 3 in the a.m. There is an actual 3 a.m. This is true, Carlos. True. We're just learning from other podcasts that aren't on Friday night. The floating heads and everyone else has to. The goats of all goats. Now it'll be notated on Instagram. We can have all the floating heads, and it's going to look like the Muppet Cast.
Paul with perfect timing.
So with that, maybe we'll talk more wrestling next week. Who knows? Maybe in a couple weeks when I return from like the AEW. If something happens there, that'll be a good sort of just buffer episode too. I know those ones aren't the biggest pops for the crowd, but at the same time, everybody watched wrestling as a kid. You remember, questions can always be asked, and that's always fun too, because maybe get Clint back on here too. Get him to talk some Terry Funk. I know he's met him, and he's got a bunch of Terry Funk actual like ring used worn memes. So that's something I'd like to journey down.
Dave,
that
did you ever
track
see
one day.
Stranglemania?
Huh?
Did you ever see Stranglemania?
I've heard of it, and I may have through the years. I don't even remember to this
So
point.
yeah, it was like 5 matches held in Japan, but Terry Funk was there, and Mick Foley was there, and some like Japanese guys, but they were like real hardcore matches, like thumbtack matches, but worse.
Oh, I've
But
got
it was hosted or emceed by the Insane Clown Posse, so it's just like them basically making fun of the wrestling the whole time, or just like getting really into it in a juggalo kind of way. It's pretty awesome.
lots of Fago.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that wrestling, they had some of that Thursday. There's a extreme match or no rules.
Mm.
And the one picture in that group chat, I think I sent, with the guy with the barbecue thing stuck in his forehead.
Ooh.
I'm like, that looks like it hurt.
He didn't
I
feel
mean, he
it.
stood there, or he just like was kneeling then, but he stayed there for a little bit, and I'm like, okay, that they're not moving, because the other dude like hit him, like he grabbed and just like do, and I'm like, Trista was just like, ah, she hates blood, and I'm like, I want to go to a barbed wire match, like, and she's like, I know you want to get put through a table of thumbtacks with barbed wire. I'm like, if I could find somebody to do that, I would, but that just looks less and less likely at this point in life. So I'm gonna take what I can. And Boogeyman, that was another one she loved. When we went there the February before COVID popped last year, she hated him eating worms. I was like, throw the worms over here. I'm like standing up and like, over here. Oh, and she's like, get away from me. I'm like, I'll eat the worms. She's like, if you do, I'm not gonna even go near you. So she's a trooper. She goes to the wrestling, and I know she wants to learn about it, and she enjoys it. So I think she enjoys it more so with me. Seeing me enjoy something like the podcast and then that. I mean, most of the time it's me bitching. I know. I hope everyone's sitting down for that one, because man, fucking tumble down the stairs if you heard that.
Bombshell was just dropped.
Yeah. So Well, I don't want my ass kicked. That's not that. I'm sure I've got my Dead Sea Scroll list of people that would like to see me injured or impaled or dead, or off YouTube for sure. But no, I want to get power bombed through a table, thumbtacks on it, maybe some barbed wire, and I don't want to have the T-shirt on. I want to just bareback them. That sounded terrible. That was fucking horrible. Should have ended about 10 minutes ago, eh?
Yeah.
Where's everybody going?
Wrap it up, Dave. Wrap it up.
Otherwise, it would be bareback, wouldn't it?
Yes. Oh man,
Wrap
there's
up
somebody with editing.
Sorry, Bob.
Bob's gonna have like the distorted face on there. You can't understand it.
All right.
We'll leave this up. So everybody, thank you for joining in. Thank you for Robert, Chair, and Vinny hopping on. Enjoyable. Again, things were said. You're not going to find it anywhere else, I'll tell you that. And no other, for sure, Tuesday night thing's going to even fucking come close. So this is true, Eric. See? But remember, it takes like 1 second to hit that thumbs up button or thumbs down up. We don't care. For this episode, you might want to go with the latter. So and also comment and subscribe. And remember, we take PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, Cash App. We have a Discord. We have OnlyFans. Obviously, that's more prominent tonight than anything. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, MySpace,
Hotmail.
Damn it.
AOL Instant Messenger.
Damn it, Dave, you forgot the crypto wallet. Jeez.
Yep, did I say I was done? Fuck. Crypto wallet. Specifically Bitcoin instead of Doge. I mean, we like the Doge, but Bitcoin's where it's at. We'll trade you a football for Bitcoin. I think that's the new popular thing. What did I say? Money order, well-concealed cash. I think that's it. I'm sure I'm missing about 10. It's usually how it works out. So, no bottle deposits. We've went over that, Eric. So with that, he's Bob and Chair. He's Vinny. That's Steve. I'm Dave. Remember, collecting cards, absolutely amazing time. I don't even remember the rest. That's how fucking hard.
Friendship.
Cards are great. Friends, that's what the hobby should be about. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.